Hey there, everybody. Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations, doing another video, um, kind of for Narrative Pro. But everything that I'm doing does not require you to have Narrative Pro in order for it to work. It's just I made it because I'm using Narrative Pro, and it's a fall ability, and it's to keep track of everything. That way, if you're wanting fall damage, you can have fall damage, and I have that coded in there. And then in most traversal games that have not games, but tools that are made and whatnot for us to use as developers that have gliding and whatnot, usually keep them in the fall state. And this would allow us to, while falling, be able to control that so that it's not continuously tracking information that isn't necessary for those kind of situations, uh, like gliding. So we're going to go ahead and create that ability in this video. And at the end of it, you're going to be able to, track the damage, choose how the damage happens, whether it's velocity or height-based calculations, whether it is on a curve, or if a gameplay attribute plays into the maximum fall height before death, things like that. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create an ability. Now, if you are in Narrative Pro, um, and you want it to be a part of the default abilities, then you need to actually get a narrative gameplay ability. If you're not in Narrative Pro, it's fine. Just use the gameplay ability, and you can use this with yours without a problem. Once you created it, I named mine GA for gameplay ability, and then Falling, and then WC for the company, Wonderscape Creations. Then we're going to go ahead and open it up. Now, once we're here, there's a couple of things that we need to do. And one thing that I want to note before we go any further is the one and only difference within this between Narrative Pro and the gameplay ability. Narrative Pro gets us access to the character owner of the ability right away. Um, so, and this only works for narrative characters. So, what you'd want to do is get actor info. Boom. Break. And here you go. You get the owning actor, which could be the owning actor and the avatar could be the same thing depending on your system. However, it could also not. You could have stuff running on your controller or your player state. So this gives you more control, or it could be a weapon for the owning actor, because a weapon could be what owns the ability. And then you have, the controller, the ability system component, skeletal mesh component. It gives you everything that you need to make any of your changes. So where I'm doing get actor location here, you would just get the avatar actor, get actor location, and continue on that way. So the first thing we want to do is we need to know when we are falling. Now, for Narrative Pro, they're using the narrative.state.movement.falling. That automatically happens when the player starts falling. For anyone else, you can always just get movement component is falling to make it work. I would, however, make sure that you have it to where when they are falling, a tag is set. Otherwise, you're going to need to figure out how to make this branch replay itself until falling has indeed started happening. Um, Actually, you wouldn't even have to do that. So yeah, put in that branch, and I'll show you what to do after because we have to do it anyways in the player character. And then obviously once they're falling, then you can continue on. Um, so once they've hit this falling tag, or it's true that they're falling, we are going to want to calculate something if we are determining if the fall damage happens based off of height and not velocity. Velocity is calculated through the movement component and is definitely a strong option. Um, but in some cases, it may be frustrating to use. But I have it set up for both just in case I need to set it up differently depending on situations. So here's what you need to do. We got the following calc type, so we need to make a new enumeration. So right click in your content browser, search for enum, select it, name it whatever you want. I named mine following calc type. And I created two enumerators for velocity and height. Then you're going to want to add that variable here in the variable section. Once you've created that variable, go ahead and search for the word switch, and this yellow node will pop up. Obviously, if you're doing velocity, all the calculations are already done for you, so you can just go on to the next node. For those that aren't, we need to get the actor's location and store it, because now we know where they started falling, so we can use it for math later. Next, now we're going to wait for a tag removal. Again, for those that don't have narrative, so narrative.state.movement.falling, just do that bool again. That way, when is falling is false, now it continues instead of true. You will need to, however, set it up to where it waits for that to happen. Let's see if there's a wait function. Wait gameplay event. You could figure that out there. Honestly, it would be easier to, when the fall happens, to add a gameplay tag to the player and then remove it when it's done. That would certainly be my way to go about it. So make sure you apply this tag, and then remove this tag, and you won't have any issues. Also, make sure that with wait functions, you want to make sure that you add it to not the top executive, but the bottom one once it's removed. There are some wait functions that have like 4 or 5 executive exits that are below the async task, but we're not going over those today. Once it's removed, we're now, if we are getting the fall calculation type for height, setting the falling end with the get actor location. That's what we're doing at the beginning. Next, we need to determine if fall damage should start, because we don't want them to take damage if they fell just a single meter. That's ridiculous. It's stupid. That's not realistic at all. So we're going to come here. I created this function called fall damage start. After you do, make sure you mark it as pure. And the first thing we need to do within this is, as you can see, we have 2 additional pure functions that we need to go ahead and make. We'll first start with the velocity one. So create a second function called getZVelocity. Make sure it's pure. And then you're going to get your character owner if you're a Narrative Pro, or get the actor info and then get the avatar. To get the character movement from that. And then when you pull out a character movement, get last update velocity. And we just want the Z. Now I'm putting it at ABS because the Z, when you're falling, puts it in the negative. And with how we do the math, we want it in the positive. So we're going to keep everything in the positive, no matter what. So ABS for absolute, so no matter what, even if it's a negative 700, it'll show as 700. Now, once we've done that, place the get velocity in the fall damage start function, pull out of it, and search for map change clamped, or map range clamped. Now, once we've done that, for the end range A, we want the minimum to be 0, and we want the maximum to be 4,000. Now, we're hard coding this because velocity stops at 4,000. It stays at 4,000 no matter what until you stop again, or until you have something that's slowing down your velocity. So we know the max is 4,000, so we can keep it at 4,000. Now for the out, we want 0 and 100. This is remapping the values. So if it's 3,890, it puts it at, say, 98.5. I don't know. I would need to do the math, and I'm not doing it. And then spits it out for us. At which point we want to compare whether this clamped value is greater than the velocity percentage fall damage start. So when do we want the fall damage to start with the velocity? So create a variable. You can name it whatever you want, but I like to be very specific with my variables, especially when I'm making YouTube videos. Once you've created it, make sure you compile so that you can set a couple of things up. For the slider and value range, I hard code it to 0 and 100. That way, it can never go above 100 or below 0. Currently have it at 15. So when the velocity is at 15% of its max, then yes, fall damage can happen, and it's going to send that information out. Obviously, right now, it's going into the select, so that if velocity is selected, then it'll send it out as true or false. Now let's do the height difference. This is another function that we're going to create. So create a new function called height difference, and make sure it's a pure function. And this is very easy. What we're doing is getting the falling start and falling end that we made at the beginning of the video, breaking it to get the z, and then multiplying it by 0.01 so that we get a meter. So now everything is set in meters. And we're going to subtract the falling started from the falling ended to get the difference in those two numbers. This doesn't work in traditional math, where if you have 200 and you subtract negative 200, then you get 0. It'll show 400. So it does the math correctly for game development when you're in Blueprint. I think I said that right. You're at 200. It stops at negative 200. Instead of showing 0, it shows 400. Yes. Okay. So we need this information. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, why not just do vector length? Because then it also calculates for x and y, which could make the number even higher. And I don't want damage to happen higher because of that. If you want to, you can. You can then just plug this in where you want to calculate things as the meter there, and be good to go. At which point you would need these right here. I think. Yeah. Instead of plugging this in here, you would actually get, where is it? You would actually do what we're doing here in the z velocity, which is getting this. Instead of breaking it, you'd keep it together and use that in the right here into the A. To do that, multiply it by 0.01 to put it as a meter and return that in instead. You wouldn't even need these right here. All those that are highlighted you wouldn't need. It's that simple if you're wanting to do it that way. But I wanted mine done based solely off of z. Now, once you've done that, we need to pull out of the place the height difference in our fall damage start, and then pull out of it and search for round. And obviously this will round it up or round it down, so that damage can start getting calculated. If you want, you can truncate, but you need to remember that if you have the height fall damage start set at 10 and the height difference is 9.98, then it's going to truncate to 9, which means it's going to come back false despite it being so close to true that it should be true. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. I choose round instead of truncate. You're then going to want to create a variable height fall damage start. And I have mine set to 10 meters. So at 10 meters, that's when that starts. For this one, I just have it at 15. So I don't think I can have percent. Can I? I don't think so. If percent is in there, I don't see it. So I don't have it there. So I have it at 15. But yes, 10 meters is when damage starts. And I use the greater than or equal to. Want to use greater than you can. And I plug that into this select as well. In order to get it, you just bring in the following calc type that we made that chooses between height and velocity, and then just type in select, and it'll bring it up. Then you plug that in. Now, once we have our fall damage start set up, we want to pull out of it, get a branch, plug everything in there, and if it's false, end the ability. We don't need anything else to be done, and we don't want to leave the ability active. It's important to make sure that you set, because if you don't, then it will forever calculate that damage. Then it'll come all the way here to the end. Actually, if it's false, then it'll just stay right here and false forever. So if you fall again down the road where you should take damage, you won't take damage because it's already here and false, and it's stayed there. Now, the next thing we want to do is we need to get the assign tag set by color magnitude. So drag out a true and get the assign tag set by color magnitude. And the reason we want this, let me make sure we can get it this way because I did it the other way. Assign tag, yep, right there. The reason we want to do this is because we're setting the fall damage based off of calculations. I don't want the damage that the player takes when they fall to be consistent across the board. So we're going ahead and setting that up this way. So once you have this created, we need to drag out of the spec handle and search for make outgoing gameplay tag effect. Once you've done that, you're going to pull out of the gameplay effect class and promote to variable. I just left mine named as gameplay effect. And we're going to create this gameplay effect in a minute. And then once we have these plugged in, we'll actually create the gameplay effect now so we don't forget, since we're at the gameplay effect. So you need to come over here, right click, blueprint class, gameplay effect, and just make a gameplay effect. I don't even think there's a narrative gameplay effect. So just use gameplay effect. Worked for me. Once you've done that, we open it up. Obviously, you're going to be seeing this, just like this. You won't see any modifiers. That'll be set at 0. So you're going to want to hit the plus sign on the modifier. And we're going to want to change the health. So select health. Next, modifier operation. We keep it at add. The down arrow set by color. And now that we're here, we're going to come to the data tag, click on it. You won't see fall damage, so you'll want to come to this down arrow, add subtag, add the fall damage. Obviously, You need to make sure you have the source set, because if you don't, it won't save it. And that's all we need to do within the gameplay effect. Once you've done that, we can now come back here into the ability to our gameplay effect and place the fall damage gameplay effect into this gameplay effect variable. Then we come over here to the assign tag set by color magnitude, and we're going to set that by the gameplay tag that we just made. Now we need to calculate our damage. So create a function, make sure that it's marked pure after you've created it, called calculate fall damage. Now you can see we have our wonderful falling calc type setup right here with a select node. So make sure you do that first, because that makes this easy. And then let's pull in the get z velocity function. Pull out and get for map range clamped. You'll be very familiar with this because we did it for the bool to see if we should do damage or not. And bring that in and plug that into velocity. Next, with the height difference, this time, we're going to plug it into there, into the value. And we'll make the range A 0. And we're gonna actually create some variables for the end range B. So max fall height, 25 meters. If the player falls at 25 meters, they will die. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. 25 meters is death. In some games, there is the ability to, when you increase a variable, that it increases how high you can fall before you die. So that's what we're going to do here. After you create the max fall height, we're going to go ahead and hit the plus sign here, add this into range B, and then we need to create yet another function. And this is the last function that we'll be making. Again, this one is a pure function. Let's go ahead and open it up. And now we need to go ahead and create ourselves an array of attributes, because you may have multiple attributes depending on how your game is set up that can change this. So we need to create a variable called attributes. It's of type gameplay attribute, and then I turned it into an array. And then I'm pulling out of it, checking to see if it's empty. If it's empty, then it's going to add 0 to the height. If it's false, then we need to go through a for each loop. At which point, we will get the actor info to break it to get the ability system component. And out of the ability system component, we will get float attribute from ability system component. And we will plug the attribute into array element. Once we've done that, we need to create a local variable called local total, and we need to add it to itself and set it. Then at the end of completed, we need to return the math. But there's one more thing we need to check, because we don't want somebody to have so much that they can drop for 5 miles and not die. I know that wouldn't happen in an actual video game, but we like to control things. So we need to create a new variable called max additional height. I have it set to 12. So if they have 20 vitality, then it only increases up to 12. It'll stay at 12. And that's what this is for. Is local total greater than the max additional health? Select a float. If it's true, then it'll give the max additional health. If it's false, it'll give the local total and return it for us. Now, once you've done that, let's go back into here. Pull in the attribute add to max height function and add that in to the max fall height, and then plug that into end range B. Now that we've done that, a couple more variables to make. We may want this damage to happen on a curve. meaning the lower the value is, the less damage that they take in comparison to being at 100% max height. Meaning, if it was a straight line and their height equaled to 20% of equal 20%, then it would remove 20% of the player's health. However, with a curve, we can make it, since 20% is relatively low, we can make it to where instead they take 10% of the damage instead of 20%. So that's what we're doing here. We're set with this float. So first create a bool called use fall curve. And then pull out of that to select float. Plug the return value into B. Now we need to create a fall curve, and the variable is called curve float. Now that we have that curve float created, plug that in, pull out of it and find get float value, so that you can plug that into the end time and return values to give you the altered amount. So now that we have that, the next thing we need to do, so that we don't forget, is create the actual fall curve. So if we right click, search for curve, select it, choose curve float, and open it up. Name it whatever you want. I do fall damage curve for mine. And I myself have 3 points. I have one at 0, 0, one at 30, 10. I'm going to change that to a 10 here. And then at 100, 100. Because I'm determining 100% of the player's health, 0% of the player's health, 10% of the player's health. So just to help you understand. This you can set up however you want. I obviously selected all 3, put it on auto. Oh, I'd made some changes. It's fine. And then it's going to make the calculation decision based off of this curve. You can obviously set it up however you want, but this is what I have. To set a point, if you've never done it before, I believe it's shift and well, you can right click to add a key, middle mouse button. So middle mouse button alone on the curve adds, yep, right there. Don't want that though. All right. So once it's created, add the fall curve to your fall curve variable within the falling gameplay ability. Next, we need to get a map. We're going to do another map range clamp. This is fine. We're doing this simply to get everything between 100%. So if it's at 100% outrange of the max health of the player, not health, not current health. So you don't want them to have 10% of their health left, and then they fall at something that should kill them, and they have 8% of their health left. We don't want that. So we need to get the actor info again, to get the ability system component, to get float attribute from ability system component. I have this hard coded at max health. Because for me, that's all I need. If you want to also have the shields in there, if you have some sort of shield effect that takes damage before the health, then you'd obviously want to track that first to damage the shield first, and whatever's left to damage the health. But that's for you to figure out if that's what you want to do. At which point, we now plug that into the outrange beam. Because we now know that, say they're supposed to take 20% damage, well, 20% of the max value of the max health, in this case is 200, would be 40 damage. And if it was 100, it would be 20 damage. If it was 50, it'd be 10 damage, so on and so forth. And then we need to, this is important, multiply it by -1. We need to make it a negative. return that. Now that we have that calculate fall damage created, we need to place that function in our graph of the event graph. Because we're outside of all of our functions, we're back in the event graph. We need to plug that into magnitude of the assigned tag set by caller magnitude. Now this will not apply the damage yet. There's one more thing we need to do. Apply damage effect spec. So pull out of the return value, apply damage, apply gameplay effect spec to self. They have owner and target here, which you could do. You can right click, apply gameplay effect to self. How did I do that? I must have copied and pasted it. It's supposed to be owner, so I'll go ahead and change that now. Show you that it does not matter. It'll still work. Put that in right there. Oh. Guess that's not needed. Yep, not needed. Awesome. And everything should work. Now make sure, after you do the apply gameplay effect spec to owner, that you end the ability. Compile and save. Now we need to set up the ability to happen when it's supposed to. So you need to go to your player character. I'm doing this in the BP underscore base player character underscore AA, which means I need to actually change this. I don't need this happening right here, because this is for Aria's Ashes only. I need my base player character. There we go. And once you're in your base player character, you need to event on movement mode changed. You need to find that. Just right click on movement mode changed right there. And then pull out of new movement mode and get a switch. It'll give you all of the movement modes. And once falling, try activate ability by class. Make sure you get the ability system component and then add the falling ability to your what's the word I'm looking for? To this input right here. You can also do add ability. I just sworn there was an add one. Yeah, there's give ability and activate once. And then you also have give ability. So you can give them the ability and return it. And then always when this happens, check to see if this is valid. If it is, then don't give the ability. You already have it. Instead, just try activate and be good to go that way. Or if you're in Narrative Pro, you can go into the ability itself, which if I go into the game mode, go into the player character, or the player definition, you have abilities, which is the ability player default, and you can add it here at the bottom. Now that it's added, everything will work as it should. So we know, if we come back here to the ability, that it's easier to do it from this spot right here, that we are in height. We're using the curve, and we know that the max fall height is 25. Well, we're going to change it to 10 because we want to make sure that this works. And we'll come up here to the 15 and fall. Interesting indeed. One second here. Let me double check something. So I found it because I had a gameplay ability. So it increased it by whatever my vitality was. Apply and save. Now they should die. There we go. Dead. Now, so that I can show it working as it should, we come here to the max fall height. We're going to put it back to 25. And we will also turn off the curve. So we turn off the curve. We took 40 damage. If I turn on the curve from the same height, we took 33 damage. Well, 32.3 damage. So, it's important to understand all of that. Then, as I had before, I'll show you guys here in the attributes. Vitality, which is my health. So if the health is high enough, then they should be able to take it, right? It's because I don't have strength set up yet. Otherwise, I'd have it attached to strength. Took even less damage. So, everything is now controlled through this one single ability. Don't need that. That can go away. And it's all done with this singular line right here. Now then, like I was saying, there may be instances where you have gliding in your game. So obviously they've started falling because if we go back to the player right here, new movement mode, in most cases when you're gliding, they have it set to falling. And that's because that falling has the exact same functionality that gliding does, just at a slower pace and more control. Anyways, so this sets off. Well, now we want to, in this ability, once it's been added, well, now we need to see, and we would have two weights here. So we'd plug this into weight gameplay tag remove. We essentially would be looking for if they were gliding. If they're gliding, then end this ability. But you don't have to end the ability. In fact, I would recommend that you don't end the ability. Instead, okay, we're gliding. Great, let's keep on going. When gliding is removed, do this part right here. Gather, if you're doing the if you're basing it off of height, get this information and set it up. With velocity, you're going to run into an issue. Because if velocity is 0, you're not moving. If it's at 15, I don't know. It would all depend on how they do their falling when they're gliding. Because velocity determines the speed in which you are falling, and it's always happening. Save now. So either way, you would need to reset the velocity, and if you reset it to 0, then the player is going to stop moving for a brief second, not even a whole second, fraction of a second, and then slowly start building up momentum again, which can be jarring. So you would need to mess with your gliding system to make it work how you need to look real if you want to. Outside of that, nothing would really change. And that's the falling ability. There's really nothing more that you need to do for your system for it. For me personally, I intend on having an actor component that houses these variables on the outside that are exposed, and then getting the character and setting all of these variables up per character instead of having to have this same ability done multiple times for different characters, so that everything can be done differently, because I may have an enemy that I don't want to take fall damage. So I need to make sure that that happens, and the best place to do all that is in the ability itself. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you learned a bit about the gameplay ability system and how a lot of these things work. I do understand if some of it was confusing and overwhelming. I'm not quite where I want to be to teach specifically about the nuances of gameplay abilities, but I am getting there. I just wanted to make sure you guys had this to better understand how things work. So thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you in a later episode.